What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for December 20th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Feel Good Friday edition of the podcast. Happy National Ugly Sweater Day. I'm wearing my Eagles Birdlamp ugly sweater from Philly Goat. It's too late for you to get one now for today, but they still have them on the site, so go check them out. Get your Eagles leg lamp ugly sweater. They also have a Phillies one as well. But let's get into some quick housekeeping notes before we get started. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont at Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram at PhillyJimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Continue to spread the word as we try to grow this thing. We've been featured in the On Pattison newsletter twice this week. Go give them a check and a follow. Emailed right to your inbox every day. Good people over there working with the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame on trying to incorporate this podcast through their website and things like that, through the Philly Sports History website that I'm kind of working on with the online archives. So continue to spread that word and help this grow. All right, quick programming note. I mentioned this yesterday, but as we get closer to Christmas, we will have episodes throughout the holiday season. However, they might be a little bit shorter, not doing any of the special things during that week as we finish up the forgotten Philly sports teams. But there will be a show every day. We haven't missed since September 8th, 2022. And something that came up yesterday, and I get this a lot. A lot of people were asking me how come I didn't feature the miracle of the New Meadowlands when the Eagles completed that ridiculous comeback. Deshaun Jackson returned the punt as time ran out, and instead featured the 1948 NFL Championship. And sometimes there's really no rhyme or reason to it. I could have, and I have featured that in past years. I just felt that with the way this team was going and the story of Steve Van Buren almost missing the game because of the snow just was what interests me when I did my planning. It was on my list of possible things. I felt the story of the game with the snow and all of that being the first game on TV, tying in the Cardinals' appearances in championships and all that, just made for a bigger story. That's why I didn't do a doubleheader. We do have a doubleheader today because I couldn't decide, but there really is no rhyme or reason. I saw a lot of people on Twitter talking about the new miracle of the Meadowlands. I just felt that 1948 team and the story, as I always say, I like to tell the story as well. And unfortunately, with that miracle of the New Meadowlands, it didn't really lead to much in that season. Yes, they went to the postseason, but it was kind of like, it was certainly a fun game to watch, though. So that's just a little peek behind the curtain and what goes into the thought process when picking this. Next year, who knows? I might be spotlighting that. It's just kind of what my mood is when I plan out. I'm already starting to plan for January, so that's just sort of what happens. All right, 25 days of kindness. Most people, this is your last day of work before the holiday. Give your boss a compliment, even if they're a jerk. And I'm laughing at that, but some bosses are jerks. So even if your boss is a jerk, give them a compliment today, and that is our 25 days of kindness. All right, not going to compliment the Flyers on their play yesterday. Ugly, ugly game down at the Wells Fargo Center yesterday. It was tied 3-3 going into the third, and then they gave up 4 goals. They're back to giving up the Little League period, I guess you would call it, or Pee-wee hockey period, or whatever you want to call it. 4 goals in the third period, losing 7-3. Tyson Forrester did have 2 goals for the Flyers, but man, and John Tortorella talked about going into this week and trying to keep focused because we have games, not checking out and being on that holiday break. And these past 2 games, it certainly seems as though the Flyers have checked out and are on their holiday break. All right, I mentioned Philly Goat earlier. You can get these ugly sweaters there. Get them for next year. But you have to check out these Eagle Wing canvas high tops. Chuck Taylor inspired, I guess you could say. But they're phenomenal. Go check them out. And if they're half as comfortable as the canvas loafers, these things are going to be awesome. So go check them out. Be sure to use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. Pick up an ugly sweater for next year, too. Why not? I wanted to mention this story too, sticking with the Eagles. I saw a thing, I think it was Crossing Broad talked about it. Someone in Minnesota decided that the eagle should be the national bird. Now, I'll be 100% honest, and I am a former history teacher. I already thought it was the national bird. I know there's the story that Ben Franklin wanted the turkey to be the national bird, but I always thought it was the bald eagle. However, it was never official. So, I guess this is the one thing Congress can agree on. It passed through the legislature and is on the president's desk. So it looks like officially the eagle will become the national bird of the United States. Just another sign that the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. How can they not win? If the NFL is scripted, how can they not win that the year the eagle becomes a national bird? Like I said, even more troubling is the fact that I already thought it was the national bird. But little tidbit there. But go to Philly Goat, check out those Eagle Wings shoes, and use the promo code Jim Montgomery at checkout to take 10% off. All right, the Phillies finally made a move yesterday. Signed Max Kepler to a 1-year, $10 million contract. He is a right fielder. We have a right fielder. I don't know what it means. He's not necessarily an everyday player. He was injured most of all of last year. Or not, I shouldn't say most of it. He played in 100 games or something, but had knee tendonitis. He's 32. The only thing I saw that remotely fits in with this team is the fact that I guess he is a more disciplined hitter, but he's 32. We have enough old guys. I don't know. Maybe this is a part of a bigger move, but hard to get excited about Max Kepler. All right, so let's move on. Be sure to check out my boys at the Clashing Conferences podcast. Doing great things on their fan network over there. That is available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. Sixers at the Wells Fargo Center tonight against who else? The Hornets. And in a Christmas miracle, Joe went from not even being available to being reevaluated next week to all of a sudden being questionable. He was a full participant in practice yesterday. Andre Drummond sort of let it out of the bag that he looked good. He was wearing a mask. So we'll see what happens. At this point, I mean, it'll make the game more entertaining. It wouldn't be that bad of a layoff for his conditioning, so we'll see what happens. He does have experience playing in the mask before, so we'll hopefully see Joe tonight, and that will be maybe the spark the Sixers need to finally get something rolling. Maybe they can change the luck here. But a Christmas miracle, Joe may play tonight. The other big news, the arena was officially approved after they had to delay the vote due to the protesters being in the City Hall chambers. And I think at this point now, it's your move, SEPTA. The one part that I guess a lot of folks aren't talking about, everybody's talking about the impact on Chinatown, when in reality, this stadium is not going in Chinatown. It's going right up. But like I said, I do think, hey, there should be a lot of celebration of the Chinatown culture and history there. But I think it's up to SEPTA now, because obviously the part of this is getting everybody to and from the game, and you're certainly not going to be able to drive if you live in the suburbs, nor should you. The train runs right there. And I don't know. I've never been to a game in South Philly where there hasn't been traffic either, so we'll see. But SEPTA, it's your move. You got to beef it up and work out the kinks now. You have 7 years before this arena is going to be built. So step up your game. It's your move. But I do think this is a good move for the city. Like I said, I think a lot of times, I've lived in the city for 20 years. So many times the residents of the city cannot get out of their own way because they don't even listen half the time. You're changing the neighborhood. Evil. No, we're fighting it. I think this is a good move for the city. I think it's going to create jobs. It's going to create excitement. It's going to that area on Market Street has been a dead zone for years. I think it's going to really make it up. I do think there's still a lot of details that need to be ironed out, specifically with SEPTA. But again, you have 7 years to figure this out. And for all the people that are like, oh, well, it was great. It was very unique to have all 4 teams play within across the street from each other. That's overrated. Absolutely overrated, especially on days when there's Eagles Sixers or Phillies Sixers or, God forbid, Phillies Eagles games. It's overrated. It creates mass chaos. Days that the Eagles play and Disney on Ice or Taylor Swift or whoever is at the Wells Fargo Center, it's a mess. So now you're spreading things out a little bit. You have other venues that you could do. And more importantly for me, I think this opens up the door now. And it's a shame that this vote didn't go through before the WNBA finished all of their expansion for this go-around. But I think the door is wide open now for an expansion WNBA team to come to Philly. And I, for one, am all for it. All right, let's turn to the Eagles and start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, is this current edition of the Eagles the best in Eagles history? 63% of you said yes, they are. And it's hard to argue with the talent on both sides of the ball, how they both sides of the ball have been playing. Shout out to Matt from Fort Washington who said this team is definitely better than the 2017 team, which I agree with. And truthfully, he even said the 2004 team was better than the 2017. However, the 2017 team did win a Super Bowl. But like I said, I think that defense was Swiss cheese. Like, I think they got super, super lucky that the offense was so explosive. But that's what makes this team so unique, is that they have it on both sides of the ball. Hopefully last week was a sign of things to come. They can run the ball, they can pass the ball, play smothering defense. If there was a weakness on this team, it's the kicker. Not many times have we said that in the past 25, 30 years in Philly. But a kicker right now is a weakness of this team. So shout out to everybody. Thank you for participating in the question of the day. There'll be another one here in a minute. One last little thing from Pittsburgh. I know I put the bow on it, but this came out yesterday when Darius Slay was on his podcast. He said that when the whole fight broke out, Mike Trout was in the stands ready to jump over and get into a fight. And I thought that's great. So that just leads to the obvious things. You know what? Let's just get it over with. Mike Trout, force your way out of Los Angeles. Come to Philly. You're an aging superstar, injury prone. You would fit perfect on this team. Why not just complete it, make it go full circle? Mike Trout, come on to Philly. And I'm saying that semi-tongue-in-cheek, but work out something. Force your way out of L.A. Obviously, you want to be here. Micah Parsons will be here next year. Let's just stop playing games and just make it happen. And again, he's a perfect fit. He'll only play in 100 games, maybe. Probably strike out a lot, be injured, need load management days, just like the other superstars on our team. So why not bring him home? Come home, Mike. Come home. All right. So the Eagles are fighting for the number 1 seed, and there's about 7 or 8 different scenarios. The 2 most easiest ones are for the Eagles to win out, and then Minnesota and Detroit to each lose 1 game. Then from there, the Eagles could lose or tie, and then this team, and then strength of victory. It gets convoluted with 3 games left. So right now, I think the most important thing is just win on Sunday in Washington, clinch the division, and let Minnesota and Detroit kind of play out how it goes. I guess it'll be a clearer picture after this weekend, and we'll know more. But like I said, there's like 7 or 8 different scenarios, but the 2 easiest ones, Eagles win all 3 games. Minnesota and Detroit, who play each other the last game of the season, each lose 1, and then we go from there. But that does lead to today's question of the day. Do the Eagles need the 1 seed to make it to the Super Bowl? In past years, I would have said yes. I don't think they go out. Obviously, injuries kind of broke a certain way, but I don't know if they go out to San Francisco in 2022 and win that game. In 2017, if they had to go to Minnesota, I don't know if that team wins that game if it's not at home. I don't know if they beat the Atlanta Falcons the week before if they're playing in Atlanta. This year, though, I'm not so sure they need the 1 seed. I think they can go on the road to Detroit, to Minnesota, to Green Bay, even to Tampa. And I mean, it would take it. I don't know how they could even get to Tampa at this point, but I think they can go on the road and win. But what do you think? Do the Eagles need the number 1 seed this season to make it to the Super Bowl? 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Let me know your thoughts on that. Anything else Philly sports related? But I don't think they do. But what do you think? Do they need the 1 seed, knowing that they've never made it to a Super Bowl without being the 1 seed? But, I mean, this season has been nothing but bucking those trends anyway. Longest win streak in team history. Went to Cincinnati for the first time ever to win a game. Finally beat Russell Wilson. So why not go to the Super Bowl as a 2 seed? Now, would it be nice to get that extra week off? Absolutely. But do they need it? I don't think so. I think there might be something to be said with this team keeping on rolling too, playing the extra game. But what do you think about the 1 seed? All right, today we got an Eagles doubleheader. First, we're going to go back to 1970. And on this day in 1970, the Eagles beat the Steelers 30-20, finishing their season at 3-10-1. They also ended their run as Franklin Field being their home stadium. The Vet was set to open up that spring, so there was no need for Franklin Field anymore. They called Franklin Field home, though, from 1958 to 1970. It had about a 60,000 person seating capacity, and truthfully, I read some articles that essentially saved football in Philly because they were playing at Shibe Park, which was a smaller stadium. But moving to Franklin Field kind of got them more in line with some of the other larger stadiums within the league. Their overall record there was 41-45-2, most notably the 1960 NFL Championship game against the Green Bay Packers, which also happened to be Vince Lombardi's only postseason loss. But on this day, the Eagles beat the Steelers 30-20, finishing a dismal 1970 season 3-10-1, ending their run with Franklin Field being their home, with the Vet set to open that spring. Kind of a mixed bag, not a great run at Franklin Field, but they did win the 1960 championship game on that field. And then we're going to go to 1992. And on this day in 1992, the Eagles beat the Washington team 17-13 at the Vet. Heath Sherman and Calvin Williams scored for the Eagles. Eric Allen, though, was the star of the game, breaking up a Mark Rippon pass to Gary Clark in the end zone as time expired. Eagles clinched its playoff spot as they were trying to bring it home that year for Jerome. That was the first year post Jerome Brown's death, and everybody knows they were bringing home for Jerome. But that happened on this day in 1992. The Eagles clinched the playoff spot. They would head down to New Orleans on New Year's Eve, I believe that game was. But on this day, they beat Washington 17-13, clinching that playoff spot when Eric Allen memorably broke up that pass and then took off running down the field because the Eagles made the playoffs in their effort to bring it home for Jerome. Finally today, our forgotten team in Philadelphia sports history, the Philadelphia Atoms. They were a major professional soccer team from 1973 to 1976. They played for the North American Soccer League, played their games at the Vet as well as Franklin Field. Colors were blue and white, and not a bad logo, very 70s vibe. If you look up Philadelphia Atoms, it's like a lowercase a with the symbol for an Atoms. Not bad. They had early success winning the championship in their first season in 1973, and then it all fell apart for the Atoms after that. They failed to make the playoffs over the next 3 years. They also played some indoor friendlies, and they're kind of one of the teams that helped popularize major indoor soccer. Their most notable friendly was against the Soviet Red Army at the Spectrum in 1974. They held their own, went into the third period with keeping it close, and then the Soviets did end up beating them 6-3. However, throughout their time, I guess after winning the championship in their first year, attendance lagged. They ended up being sold to a Mexican group and then ultimately folded after the 1976 season. One of their most notable players, though, was Langhorne's own Penn State graduate, NFL kicker, and two-time Super Bowl champion Chris Barr. He was the NASL Rookie of the Year in 1975, scoring 11 goals. So Chris Barr from Langhorne, also Penn State, if you celebrate Penn State, played for the Adams and was the Rookie of the Year for the NASL in 1975. Chris and his brother Matt, most notable, though, for being kickers in the NFL. But the Philadelphia Adams are today's forgotten team in Philadelphia. On this day in 1970, Eagles beat the Steelers 30-20 in the last game ever for them as a home team at Franklin Field. They would move into the Vet that spring. And then in 1992, the Eagles beat Washington 17-13. Eric Allen knocking down the pass, taking off running as the Eagles clinch a playoff spot in their quest to bring it home for Jerome. Let me know your thoughts on the Eagles in the number 1 seed. Do they need it? Does it matter? For this team, I don't think it does. Like I said, in past, yes, they needed the number 1 seed, and the number 1 seed helped them. This time, I don't. I think this team is so complete. I don't think it matters if they go to Detroit, Minnesota, the Moon, Green Bay, wherever. I think they'll be fine. We'll have more on the Eagles and their quest for the number 1 seed tomorrow. The 3 keys to the game coming up on Sunday. Will Joe play? Will he not? We'll find out, and I'll keep you posted on that tomorrow. But Max Kepler is a Philly. Get excited. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for December 20th, 2024. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a feel-good Friday. Happy National Ugly Sweater Day. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.